Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to wrestle against the wiles. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, put on the whole armor take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace, above all, taking up the shield of faith, with which you may be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. And put on and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. That's as far as I memorized. Okay. Praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit. The rest I get confused on. Being watchful. To this end, with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints. Okay.
All right.
That utterance may be given to me.
Okay.
Is that what's next? And for me, that utterance may be given to me.
The utterance may be given to me.
Okay. I don't know the rest. Okay. All right. So going back now, we have. Let's see. So it was finally, my brethren. Be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. So, in the power of his might, is that the idea that we're not having power on our own, but it's through him, right?
Yeah, it's saying don't depend on yourself, depend on him. That your strength comes from the Lord. Mm-hmm. Which David said also.
Right. Okay, so what other insights can you, what other wording is in that section?
What do you mean, what other wording?
Well, like, for example, let's see here, 1 second. It says here, so these are the parts I'm curious about. It says, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, so we don't wrestle against people like us, but against principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this age. So what are those? What are principalities? What are the powers? What are the rulers of the darkness of this age? What are the spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places?
It's just talking about spiritual warfare.
Okay, so what are principalities?
Principalities would be the idea of those that are in control. Take Daniel. When Daniel was praying, God sent an angel to Daniel, and he took a long time getting there. And he said, I would have gotten here earlier, but the prince of Persia, not talking about the literal prince, but the spiritual prince, hindered me. In other words, he had to fight his way through to get to Daniel, he said. In other words, there's a spiritual warfare going on. And you know, there are demons in the world, not just Satan. And he has a limited number. Not Taylor. William Christie, in the book on his biography of William Christie that we read to you when you were children, he talks about casting out a demon in Tibet or northern China, and they were having a real struggle doing it. And the demon spoke up and said, you would never have cast us out if we were all here. But many of us are in Europe. Well, later on, they found out that World War I had just broken out. And so Satan had, like a general, had sent his followers, his demons, to attack in Europe. During that time, bring depression and all the different things, coax people to do evil. In other words, Satan has a limited number of demons, but principalities and powers is simply seen. We're saying that it's not just it's a spiritual battle. Is what he's saying.
So that would be together the same. So then the rulers of the darkness of this age, would that also be demons?
Well, Paul says that he talks about the rulers of this age being Satan, and that's certainly true. They find that when a country lets down and lets in all sorts of non-spiritual people in there, things get a lot worse spiritually. So that whether it's drugs or whatever, they're not just the drugs going on. There's spiritual battles going behind that too. C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letter is a good example of that.
So what are spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places?
Heavenly places here probably refers more to the idea of the realm, not just here, but the realm of spiritual realm that we don't see. So it doesn't have to mean in heaven. Heaven can refer to the sky around us. It can refer to the third heaven. Paul says, "I went into the third heaven."
What's that?
Well, heaven, what we call heaven. The air around us is one. Out in the universe, whatever it be, another, and then heaven itself. It's the terms that are used. He says, "I went into the third heaven and of the high heaven."
Okay, so in other words, just plain old heaven or the first heaven would just be like
the
space, the air, and then space would be the second one.
It's a spiritual realm.
Okay.
And so the spiritual realm, there's a spiritual realm that's connected to actually countries even. And when we allow abortion and all these things going on, that strengthens the spiritual forces against us. When we allow, when we allow these kind of things to go on, it strengthens Satan's power. So that you go to countries where spiritism is strong, there's a stronghold there of wickedness, and as we have like we took God out of schools, it has had an effect, a big effect, in the spiritual battle has been taking place. Satan has been winning.
Winning in what way?
Well, it's you take what's going on, the things that we're allowed today would have been horrified with a generation ago. All of that is part of the spiritual battles we're making. You have, take for example, when I was younger, you hardly ever heard of people living together without being married. Today it's commonplace. It's expected. That's a part of that's a spiritual battle. We have allowed Satan to take over, and when you put people into high places politically, who are the whole thing is you can't separate a lot. Every time you have something going on in the physical, there's also a spiritual battle going on, and spiritual forces.
And it says that take up the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand in the evil day. What is it referring to by the evil day?
Well, it means when evil approaches. In other words, things are going good today, but tomorrow there may be, a real attack, and it could also refer to the end times. But it could be either way. It depends. Some people interpret it one way, and some interpret the other.
I suppose it could refer to
But
both.
the evil day, it really means take up the armor now, so when you're attacked, you don't have to put the armor on. When the evil day, in other words, it's the idea of a soldier that waits until the battle starts to put on his armor. It's too late.
And then it says, gird your waist with truth, put the breastplate of righteousness on, and then having shod your feet, so putting on your feet, the preparation of the gospel of peace. So what is the preparation of the gospel of peace?
I'm not sure. It could simply mean that you're not going to have peace unless you prepare for peace. In other words, it says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall inherit the kingdom. You don't just have peace. You have to work at peace. You have to prepare for peace. You prepare for peace, for example, by loving your neighbors and doing good to them. There's lots of ways you can prepare for peace. Preparation of the gospel of peace. It could also, he says also, blessed are those who, blessed are the feet of those on the mountains, I forgot how it goes, that bring tidings of good news. It's saying be prepared. It's just like take on the full armor of God is preparing. And you prepare all of that preparation of the gospel of peace. You take it wherever you go.
So what would be some examples of what would be some examples of fiery darts that the wicked one or Satan could throw at you?
The idea of the fiery darts, where they were small, but they did a lot of damage, especially if you had, if your shield, depending on the shield you had, if it was a cloth shield, or that would be bad news. But the fiery darts I've always looked at as rather than the big javelins, it's the small little ones that you don't seem to going to do any damage, but they do a lot of damage.